After Game 4, ShaquilleONeal and Charles Barkley didn't hold back. Live on national television, they openly mocked the San Antonio Spurs for one of the worst collapses in NBA Finals history. But instead of staying quiet, Spurs players took those comments personally, and what started as post-game criticism quickly turned into a growing feud. The moment that changed everything came late in Game 4, with San Antonio protecting a narrow lead and just over a minute remaining. De'Aaron Fox recovered a loose ball and immediately attacked the basket. Instead of slowing the game down and forcing New York to foul, Fox attempted a contested layup. OG Anunoby blocked the shot, Jose Alvarado grabbed the rebound, and moments later, the Knicks completed a comeback that nobody thought was possible. Just like that, a 29-point Spurs lead vanished. The New York Knicks had completed the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. As soon as the final buzzer sounded, Charles Barkley exploded. On live television, Barkley called San Antonio the dumbest basketball team in the history of civilization. He pointed to the Spurs, blowing a huge lid and settling for 8 straight three-point attempts despite having complete control of the game. Then came the quote that immediately spread across social media. Barkley said the Spurs helped the Knicks win by doing some of the most stupid stuff he had ever seen on a basketball court. ShaquilleONeal didn't disagree. Shaq congratulated New York for the comeback, but said Barkley was right. According to O'Neal, the Spurs became comfortable with their lead, stopped playing smart basketball, and paid the price. 2 Hall of Famers, 1 national broadcast, no sympathy. Then Barkley focused on Fox. At first, he accidentally called him DeAndre Fox. When corrected, Barkley simply shrugged and said he was calling him DeAndre for the night anyway. That comment made things even worse. Not only was Barkley criticizing the play, but it sounded like he didn't even care enough to say Fox's name correctly. Then he attacked the decision itself. According to Barkley, Fox never should have taken that shot. He should have forced the Knicks to foul and made them use valuable time. Instead, he attacked the basket and gave New York a chance to come back. The clip spread everywhere. Sports shows replayed it. Social media accounts posted it. Fans debated it nonstop, and the Spurs heard every word. Inside San Antonio's locker room, emotions were already high. The team had just suffered one of the most painful losses in franchise history. Now 2 of basketball's biggest personalities were publicly calling them stupid. The criticism became impossible to ignore. Before Game 5, Barkley decided to clarify his comments. But it wasn't really an apology. Barkley revealed that several NBA coaches had contacted him after the broadcast. He wanted to make one thing clear. His criticism was directed at the players, not Spurs head coach Mitch Johnson. Barkley praised Johnson and said he believed the young coach had a bright future. He emphasized that his frustration was with the decisions being made on the court. In other words, he wasn't backing down. He was actually doubling down. According to Barkley, the players were responsible for the collapse, the poor shot selection, the rushed possessions, the late game mistakes. Those were player decisions. Barkley admitted Johnson could have called more timeouts, but he insisted the players were responsible for most of what went wrong. Imagine hearing that as a Spurs player. You've already blown a 29-point lead in the NBA Finals. Your city is devastated. The basketball world is laughing at you. Then one of the most famous analysts in sports goes on television and tells everyone that the loss is entirely your fault. That doesn't make things easier. Shaq had a slightly different opinion. While Barkley blamed the players, Shaq argued that discipline starts with the coach. According to O'Neal, San Antonio lacked discipline during the second half, and ultimately that reflected on the coaching staff. Either way, the result was the same. The Spurs became the punchline. The biggest studio show in basketball spent days discussing their collapse. And unfortunately, the criticism wasn't completely unfair. That's what made it hurt even more. The film showed the mistakes. The Spurs settled for quick shots. They failed to manage the clock. They stopped attacking the basket. They allowed New York to gain momentum. Victor Wembanyama missed important free throws. Fox rushed possessions. Defensively, San Antonio lost track of key assignments. The evidence was there. Everyone could see it. The Spurs themselves knew it. They had watched the same film. They had relived those mistakes repeatedly. Now they had to return home and face elimination while hearing Barkley and Shaq remind the world about every mistake they made. To understand why San Antonio reacted so strongly, you also have to understand Barkley's long history with the city. For years, Barkley has joked about San Antonio. He has made comments about the city, its culture, its fans, and especially the famous jokes involving San Antonio women. Most of those jokes were intended as comedy, but over time they created a strange relationship between Barkley and Spurs fans. The city became one of Barkley's favorite targets. The fans responded by making him one of their favorite villains. It became a running joke throughout basketball media. Eventually, some of the jokes became controversial enough that Barkley was reportedly asked to stop repeating them, but by then the relationship was already established. So when Barkley called the Spurs the dumbest team ever, many fans in San Antonio didn't hear basketball analysis. They heard another attack from someone who had been taking shots at their city for years. That history made everything louder. The criticism felt more personal, the mockery felt more deliberate, and now it was happening during the biggest stage possible. For the first time, the Inside the NBA crew was covering the NBA Finals. The audience was enormous, the attention was massive, and San Antonio was the main topic. Unfortunately, it was for all the wrong reasons. Meanwhile, the Spurs were trying to recover emotionally. Even franchise legend Manu Ginobili admitted the loss was difficult to process. He described it as a wound that would take time to heal. Then things became even more chaotic. When the Spurs arrived at their hotel in New York, large groups of Knicks fans surrounded the area. Videos circulated online showing objects being thrown in the direction of players, including Victor Wembanyama. The tension continued to grow. Think about everything San Antonio was dealing with before Game 5. They had blown a historic lead. They were trailing 3-1 in the series. National television was mocking them. Fans were harassing them. And now they had to return home facing elimination. That was the emotional state of the team entering Game 5. When the game began at Frost Bank Center, it felt like much more than a basketball game. For the Spurs, it was a chance to answer their critics. For the Knicks, it was a chance to win a championship. The crowd was loud, the pressure was enormous, and every possession felt important. Victor Wembanyama tried to keep San Antonio alive. He finished with 19 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, and several impressive defensive plays. There were moments when he looked ready to carry the team. His shot blocking remained elite. His presence around the rim changed the game, but the rest of the team struggled. Dylan Harper led San Antonio in scoring but missed key opportunities late. Stephon Castle, the reigning Rookie of the Year, shot just 1 for 10. And Fox, the player Barkley had criticized most heavily, endured a nightmare performance. Fox finished 3 for 15 from the field. He scored only 7 points. Several important shots missed badly. The confidence that usually defined his game seemed absent. Whether it was pressure, frustration, or simply a bad night, Fox never found his rhythm. For a player expected to lead, it was a difficult moment. On the other side, Jalen Brunson delivered a masterpiece. Every time the Spurs made a push, Brunson answered. Every time San Antonio created momentum, Brunson stopped it. By the end of the night, he had scored 45 points. It was one of the greatest performances in Knicks history. The Spurs fought hard, they competed, they stayed close. But when the pressure increased, the same issues that Barkley criticized appeared once again. Missed opportunities, poor execution. Costly mistakes. The Knicks took advantage. New York completed another comeback and won 94-90. The series was over. The championship belonged to New York. The Knicks celebrated their first title since 1973. Confetti fell. Players embraced. History was made. Meanwhile, the Spurs walked off the court carrying the weight of everything that had happened. The blown lead, the criticism, the media attention, the mistakes, the disappointment, all of it came crashing down at once. For San Antonio, the offseason immediately became about one question. What happens next? Because despite the painful ending, this team achieved far more than anyone expected. Before the season, most analysts viewed the Spurs as a young team still years away from contention. Instead, they reached the NBA Finals. Wembanyama became a superstar. Fox provided veteran leadership. Castle continued developing. Several young players gained valuable experience. This group arrived ahead of schedule. Yes, the collapse will be remembered. Yes, Game 4 will haunt them. But the bigger picture still matters. Every great player faces a defining setback. Michael Jordan had the Pistons. LeBron James had early playoff failures. Many champions experienced painful defeats before finally reaching the top. Now the Spurs have their moment. The 2026 Finals. The blown lead. The criticism from Barkley and Shaq. The Game 5 loss. The disappointment of watching another team celebrate. Those memories will stay with them, but those memories can also become motivation. Wembanyama has consistently shown the ability to learn from setbacks. Throughout the postseason, he responded to adversity by improving. Every challenge became a lesson. That is why many people still believe he will eventually lead San Antonio back to the finals. The same applies to Fox. One terrible game does not define a career. Neither does one bad decision. Players grow. Teams improve. Mistakes become experience. And experience often becomes success. As for Barkley and Shaq, their words are unlikely to be forgotten. The Spurs heard every comment. They heard the jokes. They heard the criticism. They heard themselves being called the dumbest team in basketball. Whether those comments were fair or not no longer matters. The players remember them, and athletes rarely forget public embarrassment. The Knicks earned their championship. Nobody can take that away from them. They completed one of the greatest playoff runs in modern NBA history. They fought back from a 29-point deficit. They finished the job, but San Antonio's story isn't finished either. The Spurs may have lost the championship. They may have become part of a record they never wanted, but they also gained something valuable: experience. Painful experience. The kind that often creates future champions. So how did the Spurs respond to Barkley and Shaq? Not with long social media posts, not with press conferences, not with excuses. Their response was showing up for Game 5 and fighting until the final buzzer. It wasn't enough to win, but it showed something important. This wasn't a dumb team. It was a young team, a talented team, a team that made mistakes, and a team that now understands exactly how difficult it is to win a championship. The Spurs fell short this time, but if they return to this stage in the future, don't be surprised if Barkley's words become part of the motivation that drives them back. Because losses fade, criticism fades, but players never forget being laughed at when they were at their lowest point.